You're traveling through another dimension, not a fantasy, but a fact. Around where Hollywood's brightest lights cast the deepest shadows over the truth. This is the crossroads between what really happened and what the movies told you happened. Here we peel back the curtain, sift through the unknown, and uncover the stories that slipped between the cracks of history. My name is Chris O'Brien, and you've just stepped into the MystiX Zone.
Hello everybody, welcome to the MystiX Zone. So this podcast here, we are simply looking at movies and their true story counterparts because after all, Hollywood feeds us a little bit more than it should, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So the story we're doing today is comparing Fire in the Sky, the Travis Walton story, and Travis Walton's real story. As a matter of fact, he actually plans on making a remake of Fire in the Sky for that, which I can't wait to see. And now the reason I chose this one is because, yes, I've been in a similar experience to Travis. His, however, was a little bit more interesting than mine. And now, I'm not trying to paint this as if like it's a special thing. Lots of people have gone through this. However, Travis's story was a lot different. So we're going to break this up into 4 different segments showing, all right, this is some of the details before everything happened, what actually happened at the site, the aftermath, and then last off, Travis's actual experience, which is the biggest part. So we're going to go through this really easily, really quickly, and tune in. You're in the MystiX Zone. All right, so in the movie Fire in the Sky, Travis is just a logger. He's a logger in Snowflake, Arizona. He's 22 years old. Happened Wednesday, November 5th, 1975. He was with 7 men working in the Apache Sitgraves National Forest. And yeah, pretty much Fire in the Sky got all of that correct. Except for working with 7 men, Fire in the Sky did 5. But I totally understand that. Who could keep track of like 7 characters throughout this whole thing? Even Travis thought that was a good idea to put in the movie. So during that day, Travis did have a little bit of a squabble with one of his coworkers, Alan Dallas. Now, according to the movie, Alan Dallas stuck a chainsaw in his face. I don't know how much of that is true. Maybe it was. I don't know. But hey, it's good for Hollywood, right? So really, first part, small little details like that, yeah, they pretty much had it right. Except for the 7 men versus 5, which is not a big deal. So pretty much, first part of the movie, perfect. Second part. Now this is where we get to the encounter. And so this section, I'm just going to read from Travis's own website, where he actually has the encounter documented all right here. And then we're going to compare it to what happened in Fire in the Sky. So first, after all the men finished their jobs, loaded up their chainsaws, and jumped in the truck, this is what happened next. And I quote, "Just then my eye was caught by a light coming through the trees of the right, 100 yards ahead. I idly assumed that the glow was the sun going down in the west, when it occurred to me that the sun had set half an hour ago. Curious, I thought it might be the light of some hunters camped there, because the men on the right side of the truck had fallen silent. Son of a," Alan stated. "What the hell was that?" I asked. Travis. My eyes strained to make sense of the glimmering through the dense stand of trees blocking our vision. From my open window, I could see the yellowish brilliance washing across our path onto the road another 40 yards ahead. From the driver's seat, Mike could not look up with the proper angle without leaning way over. "What do you guys see?" he demanded curiously. Dwayne answered, "I don't know." Finally, our growing excitement spurred Mike into wringing out what little speed the pickup could still achieve on the incline. Suddenly, we were electrified by the most awesome, incredible sight we had seen in our entire lives. So they stopped the truck, and then Alan shouts, "My God, it's a flying saucer." And now you'll see right above me, right here, is a picture of the flying saucer from below. And now this is what it actually looked like, not like what you'll see right now. Now this is Fire in the Skies version. It's very reddish, it's very nasty looking. Obviously it's giving off just a really ominous glow. And now, when you see these things, they give off an ominous feeling anyway. So therefore, they really didn't have to revamp it into something disgusting and scary. But, you know, it's Hollywood. That's what they're gonna do. The craft was stationary, hovering well below the treetops near the crest of the ridge. The hard mechanical precision of the luminous vehicle was in sharp contrast to the primitive ruggedness of the dark surroundings. And now this is where Fire in the Sky and Travis's real story starts lining up right here. And pretty much everything from here is kosher. And so, Travis gets out of the vehicle, just enticed. He wants to get a good look at it. He wishes now he had never done it. Not because he was scared like necessarily, but just because he wouldn't want to go through anything like that again. However, Travis gets out. He gets really close to the craft. He looks at it. Everybody else is like, "What do you think you're doing? Get back here." But Travis was committed. He really wanted to see the craft, in which case, come on, who wouldn't? And now this is also something that was important right here. Here's Travis yet again. I'd become aware of a barely audible sound coming from the ship. These were intermediate high, piercing, beeping points overlaid on the distant, low rumbling sound of heavy machinery. I ducked into a crouch when a tremendously bright blue-green ray shot from the bottom of the craft. I saw and heard nothing. All I felt was the numbing force of a blow that felt like a high-voltage electrocution. The intense bolt made a sharp cracking or popping sound. Oh my god, that sounds familiar. The stunning concussion of the foot-wide beam struck me full in the head and chest. My mind sank quickly into unfeeling blackness. And from there on, Travis got pretty much just hit by something. He got flown back. Everybody thought he was dead. So the guys in the truck were like, okay, they got him. Let's get out of here. Travis is dead. So they were escaping for their lives. Travis had said that they were smart for doing this. Like, if you're in a situation like that, would you stick around? No, you wouldn't. So therefore, yeah, the guys thought he was dead, so leaving was completely fine. However, the guys did want to come back once the craft was gone and see if they could find Travis. And now, once Mike and everybody else started getting back to town, the police had come to meet up with them, being that Travis was dead, and they figured they better report this. Well, the cops weren't exactly amused by the story. And so after many hours of grilling, asking everybody, all right, have you ever felt any animosity toward Travis? Have you felt any feelings that you want to hurt him? Now, Dallas pretty much was the only one that did. Now, it wasn't like a super big grudge or nothing. Absolutely not. It was just more like he didn't like him. Fast forwarding. It had been about 5 days. The guys had just been nothing but taken through polygraph tests. Pretty much all of them passed the polygraph tests, saying like, okay, did you see a UFO? And they say yes. And then they were telling the truth. All of them passed. Dallas's was inconclusive. And now this is where we get into the fourth part, what actually happened on the ship. And now while we're getting into the fourth part, I will start with this. And now in Fire in the Sky, Travis was dropped off naked in the middle of a rainstorm, scared out of his mind, not sure what reality was anymore. And so yeah, that was something that was also exaggerated because Travis did not wake up naked. He woke up fully clothed and he was fine. However, he was scared, which, come on, who wouldn't be in a situation like that? So we're going to go into Fire in the Sky's abduction experience up into the real one, because the Fire in the Sky one, well, let's just roll out a really quick little summary. So, basically, he wakes up in a nasty gelatin-like little sleep pod. All disgusting, breaks out of it, finds he's in this weird little tube that the gravity works differently in. He's crawling around, scared to death, grabbing all this nasty black goo stuff, and then he crawls his way down, sees these little alien spacesuit things that look like little grays, and then he realizes something was in one of them. He kicks the helmet, you see the face of one, and now they just grab him. Two of them grab him, dragging him down the ship, and takes him down to a disgusting looking operating room, lays him on the table, strips him, throws a big sheet on him, lets the water condense on it so it tightens down on him. And now Travis can't breathe, it's all over his face, it's clinging to his face. They cut it a little bit so they can open his eye, they can stick a tube down his throat, they can stick a needle in his eye, while Travis is completely restrained and can't move a muscle and scared to death because they're also putting things in his mouth like these little liquids and stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much all they show from Fire in the Sky because yeah, that is quite the Hollywood scary alien experience right there. But the real story was a lot cooler, so let's actually take a look at that. And yet again, I'll be reading from Travis's actual website on the experience, so here we go. I moaned slightly. My first glimmer of slowly returning consciousness brought with it the single overpowering sensation of pain. Oh, damn. The excruciating ache almost caused me to lose consciousness again. I felt badly burned all over, even inside me. I was laying on my back. I didn't try to move or even to open my eyes at first. I was weak, so watery weak. A bitter metallic taste covered my tongue. My mouth was dry and I was very thirsty. Oddly, the weakness in my muscles did not seem to come from hunger. The trembling felt odd, like a strange mixture of exertion and illness. Something was terribly wrong. I sluggishly dragged my eyelids open. I could not see anything. Then a blurred image began to coalesce. The light gradually solidified into an image. I could make out some kind of light source above me. Where in hell am I? The hospital? Abruptly, my vision cleared. The sudden horror of what I saw rocked me as I realized that I was definitely not in a hospital. I was looking squarely into the face of a horrible creature. It looked steadily back at me with huge luminous brown eyes the size of quarters. I looked frantically around me. There were 3 of them. I struck out at the 2 on my right, hitting one with the back of my arm, knocking it into the other one. My swing was more of a push than a blow. I was so weakened. The one I touched felt soft through the cloth of its garment. The creature was light and had fallen back easily. And now this is a part where Travis actually had something on his chest, but he ripped the thing off, scared as hell, grabbed the first thing he could find that resembled a weapon, held it up, and was like, hey, get the hell away from me. However, something was interesting about these creatures was that they didn't attack him or nothing. They actually backed off. They backed off like, okay, I get it. I leaned heavily on the counter. The monstrous trio of humanoids started toward me. Their hands reached out at me. With the superhuman effort of a cornered animal, I ground out the strength to defend myself. In which case, I totally understand that feeling. That's exactly what it's like. It's fight or flight. It's life or death. You are scared. Yeah, you are a cornered animal at that point, and it is understandably scary. And now this is the point where the aliens had left the room. And now this is what Travis said. Afraid of the aliens' return, I looked toward the door, no sign of anyone. I needed something better to defend myself with. And now Travis, at this point, is just wandering up and down the corridors, not seeing anybody, trying to get out, maybe thinking, alright, like, what if I missed the door before? I gotta keep checking, I gotta check everything. So at this point, Travis had found his way into a room that was just very spacey, like all you could see was stars. And all he saw in there was a chair, which is very interesting. However, this is what Travis had to say about that chair. I walked back to the chair and stood behind it, looking at the buttons. I was thinking about pushing some of them when I heard a faint sound. I whirled around and looked at the door. There, standing in the open doorway, was a human being. I stood frozen to the spot. He was a man about 6 feet 2 inches tall. His helmeted head barely cleared the doorway. He was extremely muscular and evenly proportioned. He appeared to weigh about 200 pounds. He wore a tight-fitting bright blue suit of soft material like velour. He carried no tools or weapons on his belt or in his hands. No insignia marked his clothing. I ran up to him, exclaiming, babbling all sorts of questions. The man remained silent throughout my verbal barrage. I was worried by his silence. He took me firmly but gently by the arm and gestured for me to go with him. He led me out of that room and hurried me down the narrow hallway, pulling me along behind him due to its narrowness. And now here's an image of Travis and the man standing within the ship. And now this was a place that had many different ships in there, so maybe he was on a mothership. And a little bit later, he noticed that there were actually more humans in there. 2 men and a woman were standing around the table. They were all wearing velvety blue uniforms like the first man's, except they had no helmets. The 2 men had the same muscular structure and the same masculine good looks as the first man. The woman also had a face and figure that was an epitome of her gender. Now Travis asked, would somebody please tell me where I am? What in the hell is going on? What is this place? And they didn't answer. I saw that the woman suddenly had an object in her hand from out of nowhere. It looked like one of those clear, soft plastic oxygen masks. Only there were no tubes connected to it. The only thing attached to it was a small black golf ball sized sphere. She pressed the mask down over my mouth and nose. I started to reach up to pull it away. Before I could complete the motion, I rapidly became weak. Everything started turning gray. Then there was nothing at all but black oblivion. Consciousness returned to me on the night I awoke to find myself on the cold pavement west of Heber, Arizona. I was lying on my stomach, my head on my right forearm. Cold air brought me instantly awake. I looked up in time to see a light turn off on the bottom of a curved, gleaming hull. As I raised my head up, a white light caught my eye just before it blinked off. And so this was the point where Travis gets dropped off. And now his whole experience throughout this whole thing, he said maybe lasted 30 minutes. Or maybe even a little bit less than that. Maybe it was 15. However, when he got back, he realized he was gone for 5 days. He could have just been asleep that whole entire time and only experienced those last 30 minutes before he got dropped off. And now Travis was free. So this time he was just going to come get picked up and everything would be good. The aftermath of Travis's disappearance was just that of, okay, a missing man comes back. Travis struggled with this experience for a really long time after that, and I'll tell you right now, it is an experience to go through. It is quite scary, even though his experience was not necessarily a bad experience. However, it is still freaky to come across something like this. Like, it shakes your brain. It makes you question reality. It makes just looking around, like, you're like looking around and you're going like, is everything around here fake? And now a lot of people have also asked, Travis, were you chosen for this kind of experience? And Travis's answer is a very interesting one, actually. Travis believed that actually he wasn't chosen at all. He believed he just got in the way, as funny as that sounds. You can pretty much chalk it up to an analogy of like, all right, say a cat is right next to your exhaust pipe in your truck, and your truck is like one of those ones where it's like really nasty and it shoots out all the black smoke. Now, if you were to get in your truck, fire that thing up, black smoke comes popping out of the exhaust pipe and it hits the cat in the face, and it hurts and it harms the cat. And then you pick it up, you take it to the vet, you're like, oh no, oh no. Travis looked at himself like the cat, like not necessarily in those words, but that's pretty much what he thought it was. That he got in the way, they noticed him, they picked him up, they fixed him up, and then they dropped him off. You know, as like a courtesy. And if there is one thing that a lot of people gotta learn about these kind of experiences is like most, like I'd say 95, maybe even 99% of these experiences, including mine, were friendly. And pretty much the only thing that we really have to say is like, hey, these people are not here to harm us. They're here to help us. So I thought for Fire in the Sky to chalk this up into a big horror movie type thing was a disservice. But hey, but Travis wasn't even that upset about the movie. So really, you know what? I don't think any of us should be. It's a decent movie. It's got some good horror in it. However, I just didn't like that they made it the way they did and portrayed it the way that they did, because the real story was really cool. And now that was my comparison between Fire in the Sky, the movie, versus Travis Walton's actual case. So what is our conclusion? The movie, pretty good, not gonna lie. The comparison to what actually happened to Travis, it's pretty night and day. The actual stuff from like off the ship was pretty on point. It was very, very good. However, the experience itself was not at all true. If Travis is not going to look too much into this, I'm not going to look into it too much either. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time in the MystiX Zone.